Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. Happy Thursday as we continue our first week of the new year. How you doing? I know yesterday was pretty crazy, and many of you, as well as I, was probably scouring all over social media and the news trying to get a grasp of what's happening yesterday. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're joining us on the replay, hello. Also, thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to include in the comments the word replay, so I'll make sure to catch your review because I certainly don't want to miss you. And if you're joining us live, well, hello and welcome to the show. Let's start with the financial markets and let you know how the market closed. Yesterday was certainly a challenging historical day for all of us. And yet today, the market is giving you a glimmer of hope here. The Dow closed up 211 points. The NASDAQ closed up a roaring 326 points. Those of you invested in technology are probably smiling today. The S&P also up 55 points. The Dow rises by more than 200 points to a new record, and the NASDAQ tops 13,000 for the first time ever. The Labor Department today also reported an initial jobless claims number of 787,000, which actually, although it's still a number that we feel is too high, is certainly more positive than the estimates that were coming in. And as analysts were expecting 815,000 Americans filing for unemployment last week. So, given that we're in the pandemic, I guess that's the best that we can hope for. But today, I'm very excited. I'm actually very honored to have a friend here. Brianne Garrett is here from Forbes. And if you haven't met her already, you're in for a treat because we are going to be talking about the top 2021 financial advice for Black and Brown communities. What a perfect subject matter. And I want to say quick, Brianne, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Winnie, first off, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's great to be connected again. I'm hanging in there, as I'm sure most people can say, for this week. It's been a distracting one, but I also think, in times like this, we need to figure out what we can do to be actionable and intentional in what we choose to do. So I'm galvanized, but I'm also a little stressed.
Well, thank you for being here. I definitely want to jump in if you don't mind, because I want to give your bio is so impressive. So Brianne is a reporter at Forbes covering budding entrepreneurs of color, women, and leadership. And when she can, food, which that makes me so happy to hear. She's also the editorial lead for Forbes's the culture community aimed at creating equitable business pathways for Black and Brown professionals. She's definitely here on the East Coast in the beautiful state of New York. But what you're going to love too is, in addition to her passion for storytelling, she's also a big time foodie. In fact, she had a job that I think many of you probably were a little jealous for, because she worked at Wine Spectator, where she covered wine, food, pop culture, and let's just say all things cool. Should we just end it at that? Is that pretty accurate?
I would say you got it right. Yes. Definitely am a big foodie. And during my time in the pandemic, one of the biggest things I had a chance to do was cook. So that's been a major plus.
Oh, we got to talk about that later. But let's start. I would love to let's start with your role. If you could do me a favor and share with our viewers your expertise and what is it that you do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, so in addition to being a reporter, I cover obviously my own stories. You mentioned a lot of the beats that I do cover. I'm also the editorial lead of Forbes Culture, which is an extremely important initiative led by Forbes. Obviously, it's merged with Forbes. And what it is basically is it's meant to create equitable pathways for Black and Brown professionals and budding entrepreneurs of color. And what that means is, merging like-minded trailblazers who are creating change. They're collaborating at a time that's extremely pivotal in our world, obviously. So I'm excited to see and to be part of what Forbes Culture has in store for 2021, because it is extremely exciting.
I know, and you can see that here. We're sharing that your Instagram page, certainly a great place to follow if you don't already. Let's talk about this. I think many people who come on the show have shared that they learned something new about themselves during the pandemic. And, I really want to see if you, I know you've learned a lot. We talked about this briefly before we jumped in, but if there's something that you could share that maybe was something that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I think, professionally, one of the biggest things I learned was the power of virtual communication and how impactful it can be. At times, even maybe more impactful than in-person communication. Forbes the Culture saw a unique opportunity when we needed to be virtual to launch what we called Culture Talks, which were a series of, thought-leading conversations about all the topics that are impacting our communities, and that's from healthcare to finance to work from home wellness. And for these conversations, we pulled in everyone from celebrities to experts to, we tapped our community, our membership community. And what I learned was that there is extreme power in connecting and sharing perspectives virtually. I also learned that my non-technologically savvy self has the capacity to navigate Instagram Live, which is what we needed to use as our method of communication during the pandemic, and still. So that was something I think that was really, really valuable and was a great way to continue to stay connected to our audience and our membership community and to keep everyone engaged.
Absolutely. I think that's something that I would do a +1 on that, Brianne, as well. I never thought I would become somewhat tech savvy during this time. I guess when you have no choice, you just have to get it done, right?
You got to get it done. Exactly.
You got to get it done. We read a lot about finance tips and advice. We share a lot of them here as well. And I know you've got some good ones for us that might be applicable for this new year. And I love to have you share with us.
Yeah, well, first I want to, preface with saying while I consider myself an up and coming, I'm knowledgeable in finance, all things finance. I don't think I'm a finance expert. So I want to start off this conversation by, plugging a bunch of different experts that we have had in our community that we have collaborated with. So I think that's a great way to start. You have Ashley M. Fox, who is the CEO and founder of Amplify, which is a wealth management building community. You have Bola Sukumbi, who is the CEO and founder of Clever Girl Finance. We had her on Culture Talks earlier this year. You have someone as amazing as Kezia Williams. She is the CEO and founder of the Black Upstart, which looks to support budding Black and brown businesses and help them create profitable businesses. And then you have Damon John, who is a new member of our advisory board, Forbes the Culture's advisory board. And we have him, obviously, who is just an amazing entrepreneur and investor. And so I'll start off by, mentioning them as amazing resources to use. And they have been utilizing the pandemic amazingly by pivoting to virtual offerings, amazing resources to use on their platforms. But other than that, I think the biggest thing in the financial sphere is just being very aware, right? We're heading into 2021 off of a year really sort of highlighting Black-owned businesses and the Buy Black movement. And I think Black procurement and investing in Black communities has obviously been top of mind and continues to be heading into 2021. So if there's the biggest advice I could offer is to continue to be, stay on the pulse of those movements and make sure that they're not just movements, that they continue to be embedded in our spending, in our financial conversations.
Yeah, I really love that you're bringing this up. And I know we actually got to collaborate on an event that Forbes put on not that long ago. And one of the things I love that is because in the financial industry traditionally I wouldn't consider it a very diverse industry. Although our clients are very diverse, a lot of the leadership and like professionals like myself, there's not so many of us, we're definitely smaller groups. So it's nice to see there to be more of an emphasis and an interest in highlighting those professionals. In fact, I had a chance to work with Damon John a few years ago on a project. So it's really exciting to see. Let me ask you this. Biggest financial areas of focus for Black and brown professionals and business owners, what would you say that would be?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, and it's interesting that you bring up the panel that you and I were on that I moderated not too long ago. And we launched a poll during that panel and asked some of the biggest financial priorities what some of them were. And it turns out during that panel, the number one was prioritizing savings and building emergency funds. I actually ended up asking our Forbes the Culture community not too long ago, just this week, the same exact questions. And it turns out that community ended up saying that their biggest financial focuses were investing in their businesses, which is super interesting to hear off of a really, really difficult year for Black and brown businesses. As we know, obviously, our communities are nothing but resilient. So it's definitely a sign that there are businesses popping up, that there is still a galvanizing movement around building and investing and creating these profitable businesses. You think about the fact that into this year, Black women were and are continue to be the fastest growing movement or group of entrepreneurs, despite the fact that they receive less than 1% of venture funding. So it's really nice to see that we still have these entrepreneurs who are interested and passionate about launching their businesses and maintaining them despite the difficult year that we had. So to answer your question, I think one of the biggest priorities in 2021 is this sort of entrepreneurial mindset in our communities.
That's exciting, isn't it? I love that, because that entrepreneur spirit is like having financial independence, saying like, I'm in charge of my business, I'm in charge of my income. I will then be in charge of who I bring on and the people that we serve and the products. It's actually really cool. So, and I think that's a big part of financial building and wealth, and it's quite inspiring. And like you said, I do sincerely hope this is not a trend, that this just becomes part of normal life, right? That we have businesses of all types and different sizes, and what you mentioned earlier too is that they're a small receiver of investment dollars, right? So hopefully that does start to change in time. But I'm glad that you're talking about this, because we need to sort of talk about more of these. But one thing I'm excited to hear you talk about is, what do you think are the challenges and what are the opportunities for these leaders or people who maybe want to do more business with the Black and brown community? Can you give them some advice as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's really along those same lines. And I do think, as you said, as you mentioned, that you hope it's not a passing trend. I don't think it is. Just this morning, I reported a story. Partake Foods' founder, she's a Black woman. She just raised for a 4.8 million funding round, led by a number of Black investors, including Rihanna. Jay-Z has been an investor in the past. The singer-songwriter, her, is an investor. And so I think you're seeing not only budding Black and brown entrepreneurs starting businesses, you're also seeing more Black investors in the VC space. So you're seeing that kind of twofold merge or movement that's starting to help these entrepreneurs receive better funding. When we're talking from more of a personal finance perspective, I think one of the biggest opportunities, excuse me, give me 1 second. I'm gonna turn this off.
That's why we're live here. I mean, that's what makes it so fun, because it's actually happening while you're with us right now.
This is the reality of virtual.
It's the reality of virtual, it keeps it real.
And so back to what I was saying, when you're talking about finances from a personal finance perspective, one of the things that we chatted about at our panel last year was just making these kind of conversations much less taboo. Not only that, but also making sure we're having these conversations at an earlier level, maybe even earlier than college level. For example, Forbes Culture reported on a story about a founder who launched this app called Kitty Credit, teaching kids from a very young age how to manage their money, how to manage credit and navigate finance. I think is crucial, especially in Black and brown communities, to help make sure that we are aware as we grow older and finances obviously become more of a priority.
Yeah, I love that. I think the younger we can get to them, the better. And I know what's exciting too, because I know a lot of businesses now are focused on that. In fact, I just had a great conversation with my friends at Intuit, and they're all excited about, trying to come with initiatives. And you're right, this financial education. I mean, I have little ones downstairs. My youngest is 7, my oldest is 11. And at this age, you're just absorbing all this information. But you and I, we have the fortune of being in this industry, right? But there's a lot of kids out there who aren't. So This is great. That was one of my favorite reasons for actually collaborating with you on, like you said, last year's panel that you moderated. It was incredible because you had a bunch of people who normally don't fit the mold of what you see in the financial industry, and we were talking about what's working, what we like, what we foresaw, and some of the opportunities in our industry to make change. And change is certainly happening. We're seeing that continuously. It's almost like the last 2 years, I just say, just so many days of change, if you will.
Yep.
This is sort of that wishbone moment. This is where we have a little bit of fun, because I was thinking about this question, and I really want to ask you this because I know they're going to have a great answer for this. You know, if you were given a stipend, let's say somebody watching out there, you know, says, wow, I just love her. She's incredible. And she would definitely know what to do. What if there's a company out there, maybe a benefactor, someone who's really smart and says, you know what, I'm going to invest $1 million in you, Brianne, for you to do what you know best. This is a stipend to you. Where do you think you would start?
Well, that sounds like a dream. First of all, what would I do? I would reinvest it right back into the Black community, into what I saw was lucrative and what I was passionate about. Obviously, you heard that I'm a big foodie. So if I'm being completely honest, I would reinvest it back into Black-owned food companies that I, had confidence in. That's my answer.
Are there any, because now that's a foodie question, right? Are there any types of food in particular that would just pull your heartstrings a little bit more?
I have a big sweet tooth. So anything that's sweet, you just heard about Denise Partake Foods, as she is an allergy friendly company. I have a nut allergy, so that's a company that's very near and dear to my heart. So when you put together an allergy friendly company with something that is, sweet offerings, it's the perfect duo in my opinion.
I feel like that's so true. And especially when you're like, things are a little rocky, that sweet just seems like the perfect therapy sometimes.
In so many ways.
So many ways, my friend. All right. So this was so much fun. And those of you who are watching, I want to just say a quick hello to all my friends that are watching. It's so great to have you. Thank you so much. Get It Hair's laughing. Lena, it's always a treat to have you with us. But you know what? It's Thursday, and we've just talked a lot of very important topics. It's time for a little bit of fun. Let's get to know Brianne a little bit more and have a fun little speed round.
Okay.
Okay, start with this one. What's one thing that you tried during the pandemic that you never tried before?
It's a great question. I am a very stressed, always thinking kind of person. So one of the things, my sister is very big on this. We did meditation sessions where we would sit, clear our head, sort of kind of de-stress and unplug from the day. Working from home has definitely intensified these stressful feelings. So I sat and I meditated, and it's actually been, I'm going to continue to do it, and it's been pretty helpful.
Now, did you do it online or did you do it in person?
No, she's amazing. So she actually led the meditation sessions, and she did the sort of mantra speaking, and I had to close my eyes, and she took me to that place of clearing my head. And so luckily I have someone in the family who's an expert in meditation.
I love that. Well, great sister. All right. Second question. Post-pandemic, what's the first restaurant that you visit and what do you order?
So I would have to say I am a big Italian lover. And so I would have to say either Via Carota. These are both very amazing Manhattan restaurants, Via Carota or L'Artusi.
Oh, wow. I haven't been to either. I'm
put it on your list.
On list. All right, let me ask you this. So what would you order? Because you need to tell us, we can't just go in and the menu could be overwhelming.
Oh my goodness. Well, I know for a fact, I'm going to go right to dessert, and I would order tiramisu. Tiramisu is my absolute favorite dessert. So I could not visit either of those restaurants without ordering tiramisu.
All right, now let me ask you this question now. Can you make tiramisu?
I have made it once in my life, and I will have to prepare myself to make it again because it is an all day, at least in my opinion, maybe it's easier for other people. It was an all day event, and it required the use of every single dish in the kitchen. So the cleanup was not fun afterwards, but it was absolutely worth it.
Wow, that sounds incredible. I'm going to challenge you, Brianne, because there's got to be some challenge, right? For 2021, I challenge you to make a tiramisu, and we want to see you post it.
Okay. You got it. I'll tag you when it's posted. Only
Thank you. I would love that. Wouldn't you guys love it? And of course, we're going to need her recipe too, because obviously she's going to know the right things to put in this. And the exciting about this is it'll probably be pretty. I have a feeling it's going to be really clean eating, so that'll be exciting. And it'll be, and the great thing is it'll probably be completely healthy.
Well, I don't know.
I'm kidding.
The one course that I deviate from health consciousness.
Right? I know. I'm so kidding, but I love this. Thank you so much, Brianne, for leading our discussion today on 2020, really personal finance for the Black and Brown community. Incredibly important. And I'm hoping we can do this again, because I think we need to continue to have discussions on this, like this, and be very transparent. And most importantly, be open to hearing different opinions and different backgrounds and information. Just makes us better. In fact, I had a discussion with my Twitter community about this just recently. This is why this helps us better understand in so many ways. So important, open, transparent discussions about what's going on and what's real. And the more we can talk about business and finance, and sooner it becomes more empowering. So join me again tomorrow as we talk trending and sharing real stories that you can use. And don't forget, Fridays are fun. It's AWA, and we're answering your top finance, business, social media questions that you've submitted all over social media and in person at those different virtual conferences that we've been doing. Thank you so much for watching, supporting our program. Do me a favor and give Brianne a quick follow. Brianne, where's the best place that people can follow you?
Either Twitter and Instagram. I'm on both.
Okay, wonderful. Well, you know where to find her, and that's her name right there. We love what you're doing at Forbes. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. Thank you so much for making sure that there's a platform and this conversation continues, Brianne. It's been such a treat getting to know you, and be well. And I can't wait to see all of you tomorrow.
Thank you, Winnie.
Thank you.